Okay, hey, we're back. Let's try this again. Good morning, Robert Phoenix here. I don't know what happened. I don't know why the live stream went offline. I can't explain that. But there's a lot we can't explain these days now, right? In a lot of ways. But the good news is that I am on here and I am streaming live. If this ever winds up being compromised or shut down, please go to Spreaker.com and you can basically get the downloads, the MP3 downloads that I do here, and I can also stream live on Spreaker. So if this ever has issues, short term, long term, try me on Spreaker. Okay, so that's going to be our backup plan. When you have a family and there's an emergency and you all agree to meet somewhere, right? The agreement is Spreaker.com because I can stream. It'll just be audio, but a lot of what I do is just audio anyway. But today I've got more than audio. I've got images. I've got a lot of thoughts. I've got a lot of ideas. I've got some astrology that I'm going to bring to the table today. So you're going to get the full Monty with 15 minutes of flame. And we have Jasper in the house. It's always a good day when Jasper's in the house. He's in fine form today. He was not feeling so well yesterday. Jasper was a little under the weather, but of course I have some magic potions that I was able to administer to Mr. Jasper, and now he's back on the show. Gee, isn't that interesting? By the way, I can totally and completely advocate the efficacy of heat to be able to get rid of. Hey, it's Mark Matheny's birthday. Happy birthday, Mark. My good buddy, my antipodal zodiacal astrologer, Mark Matheny. Great guy, great astrologer too. And glad I know him. Yeah, so Jasper was not feeling really well. It was quite interesting because Rosie was spending a ton of time with Jasper yesterday. I mean, she was really, really loving on Jasper and licking his ears and just, she knew that he was a little under the weather. She knew it. That's why Jasper wasn't on the show yesterday. He was in his little cat bed over here, just kind of lounging. But I gave him the magic cocktails, a little C60 and a little colloidal silver. And guess what? It's whiskers time. All right, let's check in with Chatlandia. Let's see what's going on. Sorry about the false start there. That was a little weird. That was very strange, but we're back. Let's see. We got 1-0 Dragon. There's DJ MC in the house. There's Steven. What's going on, Steven? Kathy Steen. Hi, Kathy. Nice to see you. There's Mr. Maury, as always. And there is the always dependable, lovely, and graceful Judy Anderson. There's Lisa Marie. Hi, Lisa. Diana. Nice to see you. My man holding down third base. Uncle Glenn. There's Ian from Down Under. There's Joe and Mary Black. Hi, Mary. And there is the lovely and talented Joan S. Natasha's here in the house. Hi, Natasha. Got to get back to you. It's gotten real busy around here. Metamedi. Nice to see you. Love your comments, Metamedi. Love your comments. Keep them coming. Marie Olmstead. I've been using my infrared sauna every day, hoping to increase my immunity. Stephen says my smart water heater stopped talking with my smart water meter. The heater and the meter have broken up, according to Stephen. So I just want to confirm what Marie's talking about. I've got a little infrared sauna tent, and I used it last night, and I got to say the results were really good, really, really good for me. They were really good, and if you can, the problem is now it's like we've got this cloud cover that's been happening, and it's just not very helpful. And here in Texas, I think we're gonna have a weekend's worth of rain. It's got that dystopian kind of weather. It's the children of men weather effect that we're now experiencing. Jasper is really into the show today. He's making up for lost time yesterday. Jasper had an opportunity to meet one of his fans. I mentioned that I have a client and a listener who has a a 4.5-year-old who's a big Jasper fan. And I did a session yesterday with her, and he was there, and I said, here's Jasper. So he was very, very happy to see Jasper. It's great. Our animals are so important to us, you know. They bring us small joys and consistency and companionship. And it's unfortunate now because one of the blowbacks of this coronavirus bullshit is that there's actually now guidelines about petting dogs. You know, it's like we're watching this assault on humanity. This is an assault on humanity, our ability to touch, our ability to love, our ability to connect. It's being just absolutely atomized right now. And they're starting at the human level, and it's going to work down to the pet level. Trust me on this, because they're going to be replacing all of our joys with sorrows and introducing the counterfeit world. This is what's going on right before our very eyes. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the theoretical Q stuff that's going on. I had a really good conversation with Les Walgreen last night. He's not going to come on a show on Friday because there are certain things he just doesn't want to share publicly, but we had a really, really good conversation. And, you know, we talked a lot about a lot of the Q stuff, and, you know, Q world has never been kind of more popular, snap, crackle, and poppin'. I'll chime in on that and some of my thoughts on the Q world and the takedown of the so-called global elite, the deep state, the pedophile network, the adrenochrome pushers. I'm gonna get into that a little bit today and give you my thoughts and my opinion on that whole scenario. And again, I want to be fair to Q people. I know there are Q people that are in the audience and that are really, you know, full faith and credit into Q. And I certainly don't want to besmirch you or dismiss your relationship with finding information, some of which I think is quite valid. You know, I come from a different place. I came from outside of the Q circle. You know, I've been doing this, you know, my wake-up call came to me in 1990 in a big way. I'd always been on the verge, you know, on the cusp of stuff, you know, looking into things like, you know, borderline conspiracies and, you know, psychic research and things like that. But when 1990 came around, I was very, very motivated to find out what the fuck was going on in the world. And that was the Gulf War, and everything just lit up for me. It was like a Christmas tree reality. Everything just started to click and connect. And it's a very interesting time. And I've told the story, I shared this with Les last night, that as this whole Gulf War thing was going on and the 1,000 points of light, the New World Order, and it was just like the alarm was just going off in my head, you know. And so I started to do research on secret societies and the Masons and the Rosicrucians and a lot of other stuff that I was able to wrap my arms around, because back then, you know, we didn't have the internet. You know, you really had to do digging. You really had to like go into the microfiches of libraries and find out what was going on in the microfiche world and put things together and check out books. Very different world back then. Very, very different world. And having conversations about this stuff was highly limited. You taking off, man? Thanks for stopping by. Go on. I got you covered here. Ladies and gentlemen, Jasper. Give it up for Jasper. Give it up for Jasper. He's going to lay down on the chair next to me. So great to have him back on the show. It's just not a show without you, man. So I was sharing with Les as I was going through this phase, and I think I've told the story before here. If I have, stop me if you've heard this one before. But I was working at a restaurant back then. A lot of interesting stories working at that restaurant, let me tell you. So I was working at a restaurant, and it was, what was it called? Genoa's on the bay. It was a seafood restaurant. It was right on the water of the Puget Sound. It was built on stilts. I don't know, it's probably not there anymore, or I don't know what's there now. It probably tore it down, who knows? Certainly people aren't going there. Nobody's going to restaurants unless they're drive-through now. Anyway, So I was in the kitchen one morning. I was working on I think a breakfast banquet. And I was running around the kitchen, getting butters and all that crap together. And so they had the radio on in the kitchen, and it was the local AM radio station. And they had this guy on the radio, and they were interviewing him. And this guy had like all these incredible answers of what was going on. And I'm like, who is this dude? Who is this guy? And I spent as much time in the kitchen as possible, trying to glean as much information. And it turns out that it was Bill Cooper. And I know a lot of you are familiar with Bill Cooper. And so I'm listening, oh, who's this Bill Cooper guy? And remember, this is 1990. So then they say, oh, well, Bill Cooper, you'll be at Evergreen College this weekend. Is that right? Yes, I'll be at Evergreen College, and I'll be doing this, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. Turn my phone off. So I said, I got to go. I got to go see what this guy's all about. So I got a ticket, and me and my girlfriend at the time went, and we spent essentially a weekend with about 500 people, other people. It was a big crowd, by the way, really big crowd listening to Bill Cooper. And it was a very odd presentation. He got into a lot of his weird moon stuff. That's when Richard, what's his name? Whose name is, I know you guys know it. It'll come to me anyway. He was looking at a lot of the weird moon pictures, like the spires and all these other things that are connected. By the way, I saw a documentary last night on the moon. It's quite interesting. Some of it I didn't really vibe with and believe, but there was some very interesting data points and narratives around the moon, like really interesting shit. And that gets into the moon being brought here and placed here. And one of the things that they talked about is something that Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer, noted, is that when there's an eclipse, the moon and the sun fit perfectly together. Right? Perfectly together. Like the moon isn't bigger than the sun and vice versa. And that the moon has this perfect orbit. I mean, there's more anomalies here. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Maybe I'll talk more about it at the end, because I am going to talk about astrology and the moon. Well, I'll talk about Cancer, which is obviously ruled by the moon. So the Bill Cooper thing, he talked about these structures on the moon. I was okay, well, that's interesting. And he was really kind of more like, this is really early in Bill Cooper's game. So he was still, I think, figuring some things out. And of course, he had the naval intelligence background, which was always a little dubious and a little questionable on some level, right? But nonetheless, it gave him some insider stuff. He talked about being on a ship out in the Pacific Ocean and watching a USO, and a USO is unidentified, sea object? Isn't that what it is? USO. So they come up out of the water. And it's really interesting, because I had these thoughts when I was a kid. I'm like, I bet you they had, like, I don't know, I was maybe like 12, 13 years old. I think, I bet you they have UFO bases underwater. Like if I was an alien, I thought if I was an alien, I'd have some shit underwater, because that way they wouldn't be able to find me, right? So he talked about that. But then he did a bunch of stuff on the Zapruder film. He was using like what back then was high-end computer technology to sort of figure out what was going on with the Zapruder film. And his synopsis, or his thesis was that the driver reached back and popped Kennedy. There's other thesis that it was Jackie who actually capped Kennedy. But you can go down that rabbit hole and you can sort of decide for yourself. Anyway, we talked about Bill Cooper. That's where I got in, right? So, I'm like, I'm 30 years into this game now. Was it, we got 1990, 2000, 2010, so 30 years into the game. That's where I'm at. And it's so, it's all pre-Q stuff. But I do like the fact that, again, I've got misgivings about Q, but I do like the fact that it's woken a lot of people up. What I don't like is, what I would consider the mind control portion of Q that keeps everybody just on the sidelines. Like I saw this video yesterday. These Christians were talking about the war and the deep underground military bases. And you know what it reminded me of? If you're familiar with 1984, one of the things that's always this backdrop of 1984 is this ongoing sort of war with, what is it, Pan Asia or Pax Asiana. But every now and then they'll switch whoever it is they're at war with. But that's always going on in the background. And so today was a day where we experienced great triumph and victory as we routed the forces of Pan Asiana. I mean, that's always going on in 19, but nobody ever really knows if there's a war going on, right? It's all nothing but newspeak and propaganda. And when I was watching that, and I thought about this whole idea with the DUMBs, and everybody knows what, I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people know what the DUMBs are. Like theoretically, the troops are down there and they're routing the DUMBs, and we don't know. We don't know. So so in a lot of ways, this idea of the so-called deep state, the boogeyman, has become like the Pax Asiana or the Pan Asiana. Right? This is what it's become. And this is the script that's running in the background. Just like there's always the enemy, the indiscernible enemy, that's the script running in the background of 1984. Now, I just want you to think about that. I just want you to think about that scenario. And so now we have these guys who are essentially doing the same work as the newspeak commentators in 1984. And I'm not saying that their heart isn't in the right place or they truly believe that this is happening and this is all biblical, like Mark Taylor. I get a weird vibe about Mark Taylor, by the way. I just get a weird vibe. There's something about that guy that's just weird. And I remember somebody one time said, hey, you've got to have Mark Taylor on your show. I didn't even know who Mark Taylor was. And so I looked him up and I started to listen to him. Like, what is this guy? The Trump prophecies. He's gotten a lot of mileage out of that. And every time something happens, right? Oh, this is the Trump prophecy. See, I was right. I am a true anointed prophet of God. So anyway, this is something weird about that guy. That's just my 2 cents. But they have these guys now who are, cheering everything on. Hey, go forces, go military guys. We don't know what the hell's going on down there. It's just a buy-in. And at some point, you got to have some kind of a buy-in, but my buy-in's a bit different. Sorry, it's just the way it is, Another thing I thought about. And we're going to get into, there got a lot to cover today. So hang in there. Stay with me. I promise we'll get to the meat and potatoes today. We got big meat, big potatoes being served up here today. So another thing that crossed my path yesterday is apparently now the adrenochrome has the COVID-19 in the adrenochrome. And that is going to be the marker, right? They're going to get the test. And if they've got it and it's the marker, then they are going to go before court. They're going to go before court and they're going to know that the only way that you could have COVID-19, I guess a specific version of it, is if you've like mainlined adrenochrome. And then that's going to be, well, what's going to put people on ice. That they're going to have the secret tribunals down in Gitmo, right? And all the 155,000 sealed indictments are all going to be switched on like that, where we're all sitting at home watching reruns of The Office, right? So I thought about this. I thought about this. I'll share with you a personal story, and I'll try to extrapolate it and make it bigger. And by the way, it is not just my story, it's the story of many other people, many other people. And I'm talking about targeted individuals. Now, I went through a period in around 2008, 2009, roughly 7, 8, 9, very heavy time for me, and felt very targeted during that time. And in fact, at one point, and I've shared this story before, I don't have any problem sharing it. I was up late at night. I was working on my blog, and at about 1 o'clock in the morning, something hit me right in my third eye, and it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And when it hit me right in my third eye, it spread across my head like two waves going like this, right? And I thought, man, that is really weird. I mean, I've experienced some, interesting stuff before, but this is not very interesting. So what proceeded from that is the fact that the next day, I wound up having a massive case of vertigo, which lasted me about 6 months. It was only through a regimen of craniosacral therapy and a few nootropics, such as hydrogen and paracetam, that I was able to kind of get a lot of my mobility back and the world to stop spinning. It was really a nightmare, total nightmare. And what was really interesting was that I had an acupuncture appointment that week. And this guy is he was one of the first acupuncturists in the West. Really good. Just, he was like the Mozart of acupuncture, this guy, but an older version. I guess he'd be the Bach because he was older. He was the J.S. Bach of acupuncture. So I'm laying on his table and he's hitting me with the needles. And he says, you're the 6th person this week that's come into my place that is suffering from vertigo. I'm like, oh, really? Isn't that interesting? Well, geographically, I lived just down the hill from DARPA. And DARPA located just above the University of California, Berkeley. Gee, I wonder what was happening. So the moral of this story here is like, and I'm not alone, by the way. You could go search YouTube, you go all over the internet, you'll find plenty of material about targeted individuals. So the reason I'm bringing this up is they have crazy technology. And I mean crazy technology. I mean, look at the fires in California. Crazy technology. If they wanted to, they could easily scramble somebody's molecular structure with a flip of a switch. If they wanted to really wreak havoc, really wreak havoc on the lives of Tom Hanks or Oprah Winfrey or Ellen. Ellen looks like shit now, by the way. Is she not getting her adrenochrome? She does look like shit, and she's kind of losing her mind. They could do it. Easy, simple. They could flip a switch. They could heart attack somebody. Come on now. If they really wanted to change that world, they wouldn't have to go through all this pageantry and drama. Trust me. Okay. I'm a nobody. And I had a bunch of weird stuff happen to me. And I'm not a person of interest in that way. It's just a thought, right? Because we know that there are crazy technologies that the quote unquote above ground or above the black budget line really doesn't quite have access to. But below that line, trust me, there's an arsenal of weapons. Maybe quite easy. It'd be super easy. Like, let's say, for instance, you really want to take Oprah Winfrey out. You do it like a really concentrated LRAD and blow her eardrums out. It's just stuff like that, right? But no, we've got to go through this prolonged Sturm and Drang and all this stuff. I hope it's true. It'd be great. I know there are a lot of people who really believe that this is the turning of the tide. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what that means. Because astrologically, there is something very, very powerful. I'm going to share it with you today. That's called a tease, by the way. But let's get into some other stuff. I just wanted to bring that up here at the beginning of the show. Those are some of my thoughts. You know, that's my version of the Occam's razor. You know, if you wanted to really decleat these people, trust me, there are plenty of technologies around. Plenty. You could do voice to skull. You could voice to skull Oprah, and Oprah could start talking shit during her shows, right? I mean, it's doable. It's doable. And that's not to say that these people may not be feeling some heat, because I think they are. But do you know where the heat is coming from? It's coming from us. The heat is coming from us. That's where the heat is coming from. Like, we are on to all of that and more. That's where the heat's coming from. All right, let's get into, let me check you guys in Chatlandia, and then I'm going to get into the bulk of the show. That's kind of my opening. Let's see. Anyone not brainwashable to the plan is a threat operating on another vibration. Is probably pretty easy to target. Absolutely. I hate being right. Uncle Glenn, I hate being right. Laugh out loud. They admit using RF in the military. Make bug spray from jalapenos. I like that. What's going on with CNN? Morning Joe, Omar praising Trump. I was going to bring that up. Well, they have flipped their script now, haven't they? Did you ever hear? That's why this Mark Taylor guy's, oh, there's prophecy. See, there's prophecy. Did you ever hear of the stock vision of the Gnostic? Seems like an inner fire may have been lit, like the identity was found. Well, to me, it's like the God switch or the God gene is getting switched on in people. And this happened to me during that 1990 period, where I just felt like my entire being just came online in a very unique way. And I feel like that this is a revisitation or reanimation of that time. And this time it's not just me. You know, there's a lot more versions of theoretical me. And obviously not me, because everybody theoretically is unique, right? But we're all part of the same breaking wave. Okay, what else do we have here? They use voice to skull tech in the Iraq war. That's how they got the Republican Guard surrendered to mass. That's right. Communist theory, they all same side. My theory, they're all same side. Possibly. Junk DNA turning on. Yes, I can see the junk DNA turning on. And what do they want to do? They want to hijack your DNA. They want to abduct the God gene, because that's the wake-up gene. How are you going to do that? Well, how about some vaccines? Vaccines and frequencies. Let's shut that down. Okay, what else do we have here? Let's see, another chemtrail across a beautiful morning sky happening. Yeah, you know, we're going to get crappy weather for a while. They've got to have the dystopian children of men weather. No blue skies and sunny days in the springtime. It's all going to be part of the gray state, right? Okay, let me get into some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about today. First thing I want to address graphically is, give me 1 second here, is this person who volunteered to get the vaccine. Okay, I got to get rid of this screen. Hold on. Got all these windows open. By the way, I hope everybody's doing well, and that you're staying in touch with your sanity. That's a real important thing. I'm an advocate of that. By the way, if you haven't seen John Levy's latest video, I highly recommend it. He's trying to now link up what's happening in real time. So he's kind of moved out of the Tartarian past into the now present version of the reset, which I've been talking about. So hang in there with John Levi. I really like him a lot. He's a very good guy. He's one of the good guys. So check his stuff out. All right, let's get into this. Who do we have here? Who do we have here? Miss Jennifer Holler. There she is. Researchers are in the clinical trial phase for COVID-19 vaccine. Within a record number of days, Jennifer Holler, the first human coronavirus vaccine patient, joins MSNBC's Ari Melber for an exclusive interview detailing her experience as researchers, race, not researches, it's researchers. Come on, MSNBC. Race to find a cure for the coronavirus affecting the individuals and the world. Holler tells Melber she will have to do daily logs of her temperature, symptoms, and side effects will be monitored for 14 months. Okay, so the first thing that grabs me about this is she's a woman, right? She's a woman. Oh, look, we have a hero. And this is, look, I'm not a misogynist. I just need to get that out of the way because every now and then I'm accused of being a misogynist because I point out the obvious. There's another guy that we're going to look at him too, by the way. There's another guy that got the vaccine, but he was not the first. He was the second, so he doesn't get the spotlight. And they could have flipped that. They could have said, hey, I think his name is Neil something. Hey, come on over here, Neil. You're the first guy. Now he's the first guy, but of course, that's not the case. It is Jennifer Holler. And what's Jennifer Holler? Well, you know, she happens to be, I guess, kind of close to Liz Warren. Gee, what are the odds of that? What are the odds of that? Highly unusual, I'd say. There she is there. There she is there. And there she is wearing a hat. Jennifer Holler. We'll miss this tub of joy. Monica is off to her forever home. I guess she's one of these pet people. No offense to pet people. Dawn Hart, I know you're a good pet person. She will be a service dog for a gentleman with severe PTSD. She'll be his full-time sidekick, joining on all the adventures. It's a perfect match for. Look at her hat. Propaganda company, Obey. This is the Obey face. And of course, we have a pentagram, established 1989. Sign, symbols, signifiers everywhere. Crisis actress. I'm calling it right now. I'm not the only one. There you go. This is the first person. This has got to, raise some flags, red flags, false flags. Quite interesting, isn't it? Propaganda company, Obey. Oh, nothing is by accident. And if it is, then it is a revelation of the logos in action, just like when Oprah tripped. I think there is something happening with these celebrities. I'm just saying, there's a much more efficient way, technological way, to be able to eradicate that threat versus all this ongoing theater, which a lot of it has to occur in our imagination too. That has to happen. All right. So there's that. Let me go into the actual story so you guys can see the story. Where are we? There we go. Where are we? What's this one? Oh, that's that. Yeah, here. This is from Business Insider. This is where the story broke of the vaccination. right here. There she is, Jennifer Holler. You know what else she looks like here? She looks like Sarah Connor. Isn't this like Sarah Connor wear from the Terminator? Does she wear stuff like that? Again, none of this is accidental. She might even look a little like Sarah Connor, although Sarah Connor actually was a bit more attractive, in my humble opinion. Not to say that Jennifer Holler might not be attractive to somebody else, but if we're comparing now. A pharmacist. Okay, this is interesting. A pharmacist gives Jennifer Holler the first shot in the stage safety study clinical trial of the vaccine. Now, where is this coming from? This is coming from Washington. It's Bill Gates land. Okay. Bill Gates territory. This is not a doctor, it's a pharmacist. So what are they essentially saying here? What are they laying the tracks for? They're laying the tracks for every single pharmacist in America to administer a vaccine, which they've been doing anyway, right? You go and get your flu shots at Walgreens or whatever. I've never had a single flu shot in my life. I'm proud to say that. Is that unpatriotic that I haven't had a flu shot? The other day I was on Tucker Carlson's YouTube stream. He does the 6-minute snippets. And I basically said, you know, when all the smoke clears and when they want us to go back to our jobs or go back to our schools or whatever, I said, don't do it. Stay home. That's the real power. You know, I've been talking about this for years. You want to change the world, do nothing. And they're setting the stage for it. They're setting the stage for us doing nothing. We could have preempted this thing by just doing nothing. And we could have turned the tables on that, but nobody would do it. Oh, I got to feed my family. I got to do this. You know, you prep for about 2 months and you just shut it down. Well, that's happening, right? And they got the jump on that. But there's going to be a time, theoretically, when it's like, okay, all clear. I would say, you know, we're going to sit this one out for a while longer. We want to really make sure that we're clear. Thanks anyway. We're not really ready to go back. That would be a very interesting moment. And if people really wanted to, quote unquote, take their power back, that's what they would do. That's what they would do. So I put that on as a comment, and I started to get some likes. This one woman was really into it. She says, you know, this, with the thing pointing up. And then this guy, I think, what was he named? The Hoboken Hermit or the Holyoke Hermit or some stupid shit like that. Says, traitor. Traitor. Why am I a traitor? What I am advocating is self-determination. Isn't that what the country was kind of founded on? Some level of self-determination. And I said, when you break out of your spell and your programming, you'll see what I'm talking about. The vaccine was administered to patients at the Kaiser Permanente Washington Health Research Institute in Seattle, Bill Gates land. There's the landmark syringe, and there she is, Jennifer Holler, a hero, a heroine. I guess she's not a heroine, not anymore. Wouldn't it be sexist to call her a heroine? Now she's a hero. Mr. Guy in the white lab coat. The white lab coat is the new, it's the new cassock. It is the new high collar of the high priest. You see, as the Pope now has been essentially removed, we haven't seen the Pope for a while. These are the new high priests. These are the new popes of consent. 45 volunteers will be part of the clinical trial. The volunteers who were selected were screened by Kaiser to not be sick nor have underlying health conditions. Kaiser did a bang-up job on helping accelerate my father's demise. I just want to thank Kaiser for that. It will take at least a year to 18 months to determine whether a vaccine for the novel coronavirus is safe and effective. There she is. What do we have here? We have the Gemini effect, right? Duality. Is that an interest? Again, none of this is by accident. It's very symbolic. We have the left and the right, good and the bad, theoretically the masculine and the feminine. She's warming up. She's warming up for her vaccine shot. Volunteers will be given 2 doses. Second dose will be administered a month after the first. The vaccine was developed by the National Institute of Health and the private biotech company Moderna. I have not had time to look at the board of directors of Moderna. Whit takes a package of the vaccine out of the freezer. What he should really have in that freezer is a bunch of grass-fed meat. Ah, here's Neil Browning. The vaccine was created in 42 days. 42 days. That's Jackie Robinson's number. It's the only number that's been retired by Major League Baseball, by the way. Inversion of 24, right? We get the 12s going on. The test vaccine works by producing harmless spike proteins meant to prompt the body to create antibodies. The idea is that if a person were to be exposed to the real coronavirus, their body would be prepared to react quickly, as spike proteins are what allow the novel coronavirus to attach itself to human cells. There she is. Haller talks to a pharmacist after getting her first shot. She looks very serious. Very serious. Now she's doing more exercises. I guess that's to have the vaccine flow through her better. While participants don't risk getting the virus, the safety of the vaccine is still unknown. Scientists don't know how the immune system will respond to the test. So this guy, Neil Browning, is that his name? Neil Browning? He works for Microsoft. Let's see if I can find that. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. Let me blow this up a bit more. Okay. Here's the page I want to show you. Right there. Neil Browning, '46 of Bothell, Washington. Daughters are proud he volunteered. Every parent wants their children to look up. I don't know what do we see? Where is this thing? Apparently he works for Microsoft. Oh, there's Mark Taylor, the prophet. Prophecy coming to pass. Even MSM will begin to agree with him. Well, that's true. But that's been part of the Trump program for a while now, right? We've seen that. There's the Nassara stuff. Let me see if I can find this thing. Where is it? Oh, that's Haller. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Neil Browning, 46 of Bothell, Washington, is a Microsoft engineer who says his young daughters are proud he volunteered. Does anybody have any sons anymore? Just curious about that. Her 2 teenagers think it's cool. It's cool to be part of the study. Mom, it's so cool. You're a hero, Mom. Every parent wants their children to look up to them, he said. but he's told them not to brag to their friends. It's other people too. It's just, that's not just dad out there. Don't, be humble. Please be humble. I'm just a regular Joe who works for Bill Gates. Now, apparently, there's some other unusual stuff going on with Mr. Bill Gates, and that has to do with a tattoo. A tattoo that will let people know very quickly, with the ability to have an RFID scan barcode. The tattoo will let people know whether or not you've been vaccinated and or have taken the so-called test. No, he's got that. I think it's called Project 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So Bill Gates stepped down from the board of Microsoft. Anybody know how Bill Gates started his fortune? I know some of you out there do, but just in case you don't, let me just do a little backfill, or fill you on his backstory. Bill Gates was a kind of a failure as a coder. Just wasn't very good. Just, like Steve Jobs never went to college. Bill Gates dropped out. We know that Bill Gates' father was an executive at Boeing and a mover and shaker in the world of Planned Parenthood. So Bill Gates was born into a family that is heavily invested in eugenics. That's his background. So Bill Gates ran across a guy who essentially created a rough version of Windows as we know it. Okay. Because prior to Windows, people were doing things like MS-DOS. And it was all like, Shift F8. And if you wanted to do something, you needed to know how to mess around with your computer. And I was actually using MS-DOS based computers right around that time, or at least getting into them. So what Bill Gates did is he found this guy, and they had a meeting, and the guy showed Bill Gates what he was working on, and Gates said, "Could I have not a full, but could I have like a kind of a mock copy of this that I could kind of work on a little bit?" So the guy said, "Yeah, sure, okay." So Gates then took that program, and he had some of his people that could really do shit work on it and clean it up, and he gave it to his father. And his father went around to a number of people who would ultimately wind up investing in Microsoft. So they had to get the green light to say, look, this is a game changer. This takes us from basically cuneiform to motion pictures. It was that much of a game changer. So once they got that in place, and once they knew that the money was there, Gates went back to this guy and offered him a pittance, an absolute pittance for the program. I think he might have offered him like $150,000 or something like that, which he was able to get through this kind of seed investment money. And the guy gave it up. Okay, here you go. So Bill Gates, I think he got Windows for about 150 grand, which he didn't even do anything. He just made the deal. Okay, that's how Microsoft got started. Just like many American companies, it's not always the blood, sweat, and tears of the American dream. It's being able to find somebody, find an asset, and target that asset, and be able to exploit the asset. And that's not to say that there aren't hardworking people that have the ability to build something, because there are. And I don't want to say that everything is rigged, because I don't think everything is rigged. It takes us and what we're able to do out of the equation. It's a very disempowering position. But we also have to understand and realize that there is a lot of rigging going on, okay, which makes it a bit more difficult. All right. So we've talked about Bill Gates. Let me bring up the rest of what I wanted to share with you today. There's a lot going on. Yeah, so I had this primed and ready to go. This is what the Crimmies were talking about in chat. Ilhan Omar praises Trump's incredible response to coronavirus pandemic. You think maybe Ilhan Omar got at about 3 a.m.? Shall we see what the great revolutionary has to say here? Sometimes Fox's videos take forever to load. It's going to it's getting in the way of the rhythm of the show. Whoops, stop the share. That's good. But you guys get the drift, right? I'll read it to you. Minnesota Democratic Rep Ilhan Omar unexpectedly praised Trump's handling the coronavirus pandemic on Wednesday night, saying it was incredible and the right response in this critical time. This is the Democratic script. They're writing the script. They've written the script here. So one of the other things, the squad, right? So we have Ilhan Omar praising Trump. Another member of the squad, what's her name? Presley. I believe her name is Ayanna Presley, and she is a congresswoman from Maryland who has recently just shaved her head. She's going for the Grace Jones effect, apparently. Remember Grace Jones had a bald head? Remember the first time you ever saw Grace Jones? You were like, what the fuck? Who is this? And then there was the Grace Jones Dolph Lundgren effect. You know, like Grace Jones and Dolph Lundgren were lovers for a while. And you know, of course, my mind goes to what kind of sex did Grace Jones and Dolph Lundgren have? I mean, you know, Grace Jones has got, you know, she's kind of primal, you know, she's kind of primal. And Dolph Lundgren, of course, he's, you know, he was the Russian fighter that must have taken on Rocky Balboa. So, you know, my mind had to go there. It's like, what is their bedroom scene like? Do they just go fucking crazy? Are they scratching and clawing and fighting? And I mean, I had to go there. The mind goes there sometimes. What can I say? But now Presley has the Grace Jones effect. And she's saying, by the way, and this is where we're getting into some very, very precarious territory. And I'm gonna shift the tone a little bit because there is a level of seriousness that I need to communicate right now without being, again, being accused of being a fear monger, which I never want to be accused of. But Ayanna Presley is talking about releasing prisoners. And this is a theme now. This is part of the Democratic theme, the progressive theme. Let's release. So she wanted to have all these prisoners released. And then she says, well, but especially prisoners over 60, because they may not be able to be with their families in a time of crisis. Really? You want to? Right now, who are the safest people in the world? It's the prisoners. And they're the safest people in the world. Why would you want to bring them out of prison and expose them to a virus? Right? I mean, they're already on lockdown. They're already in quarantine. Are you kidding me? It's like stupid fucking logic. Why would you bring them out? Well, there's a reason why. Now, long time ago, you know, through the highways and the byways of the internet, 4chan, 8chan chat rooms, whatever, I ran across something that always stuck in my head. And it was when they release the prisoners, that's the moment you've got to be hyper aware. And we are edging up to that moment right now. We're edging up to it. Now, if the states can mandate what they want, and they've shown that they have been and are willing to do it, all the way from California to Pennsylvania, New York City, a few stops in between. What's to prevent states from mandating the release of their prisoners? And we've also been seeing that, for instance, Pennsylvania has said that police are not going to respond to events that are minor. And you should see what they're classifying as minor now. So it's the San Francisco model. The San Francisco model is, hey, $999, really, $999, flip it around, 666. You steal more than $999, which is $1,000, obviously. And guess what? You're in big trouble. But if you steal $999, well, you get a little citation, a little summons. We've seen how that's been working. Although in San Francisco now, they've figured out how to stop that crime simply by locking down the entire city. But this model is now beginning to spread like a virus throughout the country. And we have Pennsylvania basically saying that they are not going to respond to things like vandalism, even breaking and entering might be something that they will not respond to. So if there is this, again, I just want to get out in front of this, okay? Because that's what I try to do. I do my best to get out in front of things and to be able to talk to you guys. And by the way, I'm not here to toot my own horn, but who's been telling you for well over a year and a half, maybe 2 years, to have 30 days worth of food on hand and water, right? Who's been telling you that? I'm not the only one, obviously. I was just trying to get out in front of something. And here we are. We're in that moment. So what happens if these prisoners are released? Sentence commuted, whatever. What happens then? And what happens if the local constabulary is told to stand down? Do the math on that. Do the math on that. And now we have people locked in their houses theoretically because of a quarantine, which I thought was going to be here sooner, but it could be here within the next 48 to 72 hours, which I'm still trying to verify. And whether it is or not officially, unofficially, they're basically forcing you into your home because you can't do shit. You can't go out, you can't get a meal. Well, you can get a meal if it's a drive-through or somebody's going to drone it to your house. But congregating, mixing, sharing stories, swapping spit, very good way, is essentially been softly mandated to not be a healthy act. And not only that, it is a threat to the safety of others. But let's just say there is a so-called quarantine. What do we have now? We have people locked in their homes. We have theoretically prisoners released, and we have a stand down with the local constabulary. Can you say the purge? Doesn't that sound a lot like the purge? And by the way, they just released the movie The Hunt just before all this happened. And again, I'm not here to spread fear. We got to get it out there. Okay, we have to dispel the spells. You need to understand this. Conversely, there is a massive buy right now on firearms. Massive buy on firearms, massive buy on ammo. And I'm not sure how long that's going to be able to last. Like, it is so crazy right now trying to get a gun. Still, it's possible, but it's crazy. How long do you think that's going to be able to last? At what point did they just freeze the process? Just like everything else. By the way, they've closed all the truck stops in Pennsylvania. Not truck stops, I'm sorry, rest areas. They've closed the rest areas. So what do truckers do? They use the rest areas to sleep, relax, take a load off. Well, they can't do that now. So they'll have to go to truck stops. And, you know, I guess it's an alternative. But I think at some point, if this thing continues to go on, and they're already kind of getting there, they're already getting there because they don't want truck drivers. Truck drivers are the people that theoretically will be allowed to have interstate traffic and transport, theoretically. But I can tell you that in New Mexico and Texas, Waymo has been hard at work creating trucks that are driverless. I want you to think about that for a moment. This would be the perfect test ground if nobody's on the road, right? If nobody's on the road because people are staying home or interstate travel has been, stopped or blockaded. You could have self-driving trucks on the road with no threats of going haywire. And if they do, there's going to be what kind of casualties would ensue if a self-driving truck kind of went off the track. You see that? You take the cars off the road, you get the self-driving trucks in. Oh, guess what? We have a solution now. All those germy virus carrying white line fever jockeys, well, they don't have to do their jobs anymore. We've figured out a way to bring things to market without any potential contagion. I'm just trying to get out in front of things. The other thing that we're going to have to think about as Mr. Virgo kicks in is the internet. You ever think about all the people at home now, telecommuting, doing school programs? Think about the bandwidth of the internet and the absolute weight on the internet that everybody's sitting around at home looking to either work or study or be distracted at some level. That's a lot of weight. I would not be surprised if at some point, either real or manufactured, that the internet breaks. Wouldn't be surprised at all. And what do you think the solution to that's going to be? Well, we have a solution. We know that we've all been having an issue with the internet lately because everybody is home now and they're telecommuting and they're going to school, they're doing all the right things, but the internet just cannot take the strain. So we're using this opportunity right now to ramp up 5G to meet the needs of the people and their ability to travel on the information superhighway. See that? While you were sleeping, while you were in your cubicle, your pod, the world is changing overnight at warp speed. So, what are you going to do? Well, in case of the missing constabulary and the very real threat at hand of people who do not have resources or have been released and or activated, you're going to need to take care of yourself because nobody's going to take care of you. Like, there's some people, they're over here, they're banging on our door. Is this really an emergency? I'm sorry, we can't respond right now. If you go online, you'll be able to fill out a form and email that to us, and we'll review that. We'll get back to you within the next 48 hours. Okay, you don't want to rely on that. No. So look, I'm not gonna spell this out. Where's that word? But you're gonna have to take care of yourselves, and you're gonna have to again connect with other people in a very real and honest and connected sort of way, you know, because to me, I mean, this is where this thing is headed. I mean, I can see this. You just start connecting the dots. Now, they may just pull the plug on this 2 weeks from now, and we can all breathe a sigh of relief. Ah, we go back. The NBA's back. Oh, yes, yes. Life as usual. And then the Q people will say, see. It was all just to make a change in the system, to flush out the deep state, to get away from that. And that stuff could be true. Okay. I don't want to discount that. I'm just saying that if they really wanted to do that to those people, there are other means, trust me, other means in order to really fuck up their world versus the Sturm und Drang and the ongoing pageantry and theater, the Dan Brown-like intrigue of figuring out all these clues, which is kind of interesting. I mean, every now and then, you know, they give you something to really nibble on. 322. That's a number. It's 322. Apparently, it's connected to Trump's watch, I believe, or the iPad. There was something about 322. And of course, we're staring down 322 in 3 days. 322 is the number of skull and bones. It's also the day that the Georgia Guidestones were erected in what year? 1980. It's the 40th anniversary coming up of the Georgia Guidestones, 322. Again, the number of skull and bones, 322. 322, 2020. So we've got 4 and 4. That's 8. Then the 3 is 11. 11, number 11. Twin Towers, duality, Gemini. One of the things that people have been talking about, I've been trying to find the image, okay? I've been trying to find the image. I can't find it. I'm sure somebody in Chatlandia will be able to locate it. I was looking at it last night and I was not able to, I should have saved it. But apparently something very interesting has happened. And again, is it theater or is it something real that we can kind of wrap our heads around? When Trump has been giving these press updates, and you may want to look at this now, every time Trump goes live, look at the podium. At one point, there was the seal on the podium. Every single presidential podium had that seal, with the eagle and then the arrows and the talons. That is gone. That seal is gone. Instead, there's a placard there that says, you know, President of the United States, White House. It's something quite mundane, actually. But that is significant. Okay. That is, I think that's actually significant. And I'm going to get into this vis-a-vis astrology, which I'm going to talk about in about 5 minutes. If you're waiting for astrology, it's coming, I promise. The other thing, and again, I cannot verify this. It's only through things that I've been reading and trying to wrap my head around, connect the dots, that the flag has changed with those press briefings. And the Admiralty flag or the maritime flag, the one with the gold fringe, is gone. And it's actually been replaced by a standard US flag. So we have that flag being changed, and we have the seal being taken away, eradicated, and now we have a placard. Very interesting stuff. Remember, signs, symbols, signifiers give us insights on some level. You know, and it's up to us to determine what they are so that we can make sense of reality, surreality, hyperreality to the best of our ability. So I wanted to get into a little astrology. You guys know that I am a big fan of the Sabian symbols. I think they're terrific. I use them a lot in my work, and I can't tell you how much the Sabian symbol for one Cancer has been coming up in readings. recently, bigly. So it's coming up for me personally with readings. And guess what? We're staring down one Cancer in May. And then what happens? It flips to 29, 29 Gemini. Okay. So in the Sabian symbols, there is no zero. So I want to show you what one Cancer is, the Sabian symbol for one Cancer. Very interesting. Let's see, Ilhan Omar and Crappy Fox video go away. There's some other interesting stuff around this hydroxy chloroquine. And chloroquine apparently has been proven effective in inhibiting SARS-CoV-2 infection in vitro. I'm going to talk about that. I'm just going to show you what I've seen. This is on a thing called Cell Discovery. It's not my opinion. This is actually a scientific website and journal, just to let you know. Let me go back here. Where is this? Oh, so here's the Georgia Guidestones. Wanted to bring them up just in case. There they are. There they are. There it is. Opening date.
Power off.
March 22nd, 1980. June 1979. June, of course, Gemini. The month of Gemini. A man using the synonym Robert C. Christian, apparently people think it's Ted Turner, approached the Elberton Granite Finishing Company on behalf of a small group of loyal Americans and commissioned the structure. Christian explained the stones would function as a compass, calendar, and clock, and should be capable of withstanding catastrophic events. So Christian delivered a scale model of the Guidestones and 10 pages of specifications. The 5-acre land was apparently purchased by Christian on October 1st, 1979 from a farm owner, Wayne Mullenix. Mullenix and his children were given lifetime cattle grazing rights on the Guidestone site. The monument was unveiled March 22nd, 1980 for an audience variously described as 100 or 400 people. Christian later transferred ownership of the land and the Guidestones to Elbert County. In 2008, the stones were defaced with polyurethane paint and graffiti with slogans as "Death to the New World Order." Wired magazine called the defacement the first serious act of vandalism in the Guidestones history. September 2014, an employee of the Elbert County Maintenance Department contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the stones were vandalized with graffiti including the phrase, "I am Isis, goddess of love." Here are the inscriptions: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. This is eugenics, by the way. Unite humanity with a new living language, with a living new language. Rule, passion, faith, tradition, and all things through tempered reason. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Oh yeah, little New World Order action. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Yeah, just give the big laws and the useful officials all the power. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Isn't that a lovely thought? Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. Ted Turner has left a lot of room for nature since he's one of the largest landowners in North America. He's leaving a lot of room for nature. I'm not saying it's Ted Turner, but there are people that do believe it's Ted Turner, and that would not be too far of a stretch, in my humble opinion. All right, so let's get into the where are we? Where are we? Okay. There we go. So this is the Sabian symbol for one Cancer. No, come on. Don't fuck with me. Every now and then I would go to a website and do it, like click in the page and it takes me to another website. Why do that? I did not want to go there. Very strange stuff. All right. So remember now, this is where the true node in Cancer is headed. And it actually kind of vibes with what we're witnessing with the podium and the flag. Something is changing now. And we're not really privy to what that change is, theoretically. Let's look at the symbol. On a ship, the sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. Oh, isn't that interesting? A radical change of allegiance, exteriorized in a symbolical act, a point of no return. This is where the true node is headed. Right there. One Cancer. Now, this is very much reminiscent and connected to the Bolshevik Revolution. Because in the Bolshevik Revolution, it was the Navy that anchored the Bolshevik Revolution. And they literally took down the flag of the Romanovs and Imperial Russia, and they hoisted a new flag, which was the sickle and the hammer. That's where part of this symbol comes from. Another part, of course, I've talked about before, which is the false flags that would happen at sea. And that if you were a pirate ship, you would have any number of flags that were available at your disposal. So for instance, let's say there was a ship and you had your guy up in the crow's nest and you saw it off in the distance and you're pirates and you see that the ship is, let's say, Portuguese. And you know that Portugal has a relationship with Spain. So what would you do? You put let's run the Spanish flag up there. Right? So as you got closer, Portuguese say, hey, there's our Spaniard compadres. And as you got closer, closer, and closer, and the cannons are primed and ready to go, all of a sudden, just before you light that fuse, down goes the Spanish flag. Up goes the Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones 322. Bang! The cannons go off, and the Portuguese are screwed. Right? That's how the game worked. That's a false flag. That's where we get the definition of a false flag from. I'll read more. We have now reached a square 90-degree angle to the beginning of the cyclic process. So the cyclic process starts at 0 Aries and the 90-degree angle. So it starts with the spring equinox, which we are at. So we're going to have the spring equinox and we're going to have the symbol of the 90-degree angle, which would be the summer solstice. That's the 90-degree angle. The sun entering the sign of tropical Cancer. This is a moment of crisis, a sharp turning point. In the zodiacal cycle at the summer solstice, the northward motion of the sun in decimation stops. The sun rises and sets as far north of exact east and west as it can during the year's cycle. Its motion is now reversed. Slowly, the sunset points move southward on the western horizon, and the length of the day decreases. That's during the summer solstice, right? So we're headed towards between now and that point, kind of the highest point of theoretical light. Okay. In the lunation cycle, from new moon to new moon, this is the first quarter phase. On the ship, which symbolizes the ego consciousness, floating as it were on the sea of the vast unconscious, the individualized will makes a basic decision. The dominant yang force allows the yin force to begin its 6-month-long rise to power. That's a very interesting, notice by Rudyard. So basically, from summer to from the summer solstice to the autumnal equinox, the yin forces are rising. And I think he's saying that because of the production of vegetation. which arises from the earth, which is a very yin-oriented process, right? Let me continue to read this. The dominant yang force allows the yin force. So what is the dominant yang force? The dominant yang force could be attributed to hierarchies. It could be attributed to even the agencies of the hierarchies, i.e. law enforcement, perhaps, military, perhaps, right? However, we can interpret and define what the yang force is. It allows the yin to begin its 6-month-long rise to power. The collective will gradually overcomes the individual. And at the end, the state will overpower the person. Interesting, huh? Now, however, the individual person enjoys his most glorious hour. He exalts in his ability to make a free decision, i.e. to act as an individual who selects his life goal and allegiance. Don't sleep on this time. This is the first stage in the 19 five-fold series of degree symbols and a decisive act heavy with consequences. The symbolic college youth might realize that he should bring an end his quest for the ideal companion and enter into matrimony. He assents to the possibility of progeny, of home, responsibility. His consciousness accepts a process of fundamental reorientation. Implying the stabilization of his energies. This is a very important symbol. This is where we're headed. Now, the White House has something live going on. I wonder if I should punch that up. Let me read this other piece here really quickly, and let me just see what they're talking about. Maybe we'll get a look into the seal. Okay. So where does the symbol go to? Well, as we know that the lunation cycles or the nodal cycles essentially go backwards, right? So it would go from essentially let me see, what do we have here? 1 Cancer to 30 Gemini. This is a really interesting symbol, especially the way that Rudyard interprets it. So we got 30 and then 29 Gemini. Let's look at 30 Gemini. A parade of bathing beauties before large crowds. Keynote, the setting of social standards through personal excellence and competition. In this very American scene, we see a very ancient and basic process which can operate at several levels. Society sets certain collectively acceptable cultural standards and recompenses by prestige and fame the persons who embody them physically or mentally. This generates emulation and the desire to bring the social images to their most perfect and concrete manifestation. The archetypal image or canon of proportion is thus incarnated for all to behold and be fascinated by. The process of exteriorization is complete. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. This is the last phase of the 6th scene. In the zodiac, the spring season has come to a close. It is summer solstice. That's where we go to 1 Cancer. Fulfillment leads to new demands upon the individual human consciousness. The show is over. Now comes the hour of decision. That's where the nodes are headed. And we know that the true node moves into Gemini at the end of May. Let me read that last paragraph again. This is the last phase of the sixth scene in the zodiac. The spring season has come to a close. It is summer solstice. Fulfillment leads to new demands upon the individual human consciousness. The show is over. Now comes the hour of decision. That's, of course, when the most beautiful of the beauty queens is crowned. Oh, isn't that interesting? It's crowned. All right. And who, by the way, made his bread and butter in some ways, and perhaps spread his bread and butter with beauty pageants, Donald J. Trump, right? Miss America. He bought the franchise. He ran that for a while. Let me check in with you guys with chat. Let's see where you're at. We still have a bit more to cover today. These are going a bit long. It's only because there's a lot to talk about, obviously. And some of you will drop off, and that's okay too. You can always come back and watch this afterwards. Let's see what we have here. Let's go into, let me see if I can catch up with Chatlandia. They may take your life, but they can never take your soul. They're going to try to. They're going to try to. Gold fringe in the flag at the White House right now. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Maury. I was going to look at that. The nodes are going into yang, air, and fire. Yes, the fire is the incapacitated, or it is the what's the word I'm looking for? It is recessive fire. It is not for riches or glory that we fight, but for freedom. Declaration of Arboroth. Robert, how do you see how this affects your Mars? Don't forget to hit the like button. The wartime president, he coined it himself yesterday. How does it affect my Mars? It's a really interesting question. I don't know. Well, I feel like it's because I have Mars at 0 degrees Cancer. And I have, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I have two interesting symbols in my panoply. By the way, I'm going to do a webinar on the Sabian symbols. That's one of the things I'm working on. So I have two interesting symbols in my astrological playbook. And the other symbol that has to do with a flag is my Jupiter and Sag, which is a flag bearer in battle. And oddly enough, I've always kind of felt like that. And if you want to understand sort of the power of that symbol, again, not just me, but the symbol itself, watch the movie The Patriot, where Mel Gibson has this flag, right? It's the colonial flag, and he's going into battle against the British, and he has no weapon except the flag. That's that symbol. So I have two flag symbols. One flag lowers, another one raises, and the other is a flag bearer in battle. So, I feel like, my Mars gets activated in these situations in general, because it's very protective. My Mars in Cancer is very, very protective. And, it's just the way it is. So I'm protective of people. I am. Can't help it. Can't help it. So I think that's part of how it's being activated. Will I drop one point of view for another? Will that be kind of an important thing? I don't know. We'll see now, won't we? I'll keep you posted from my front. So I wanted to find out what was going on with Trump and the flag. Maury says the Admiralty or the maritime flag is there. Other people have stated that in other addresses that it was not there. And apparently we're not seeing the seal, or at least we're not getting a podium view. I don't really feel like tuning into that right now. Actually, my son's sun is at 0 degrees Cancer. Oh, he's born on the summer solstice, the cusp of magic. Diana says, I have Mars in Leo. Lucky you. Friend of Podium says, has a placard saying, White House. That's it. Okay, so that's what we're talking. Thanks, Maury. Thank you, Maury. There we go. So that seal is gone now. And that actually fits this model of one flag lowering, another flag raising. Now, one of my worries or concerns, to put it that way, is that the flag that they're talking about is the flag of the United Nations. Now, some people say that by removing that seal, that they're removing their connection with the UN. Because there's some, I don't know, it's kind of a leap between the UN, which is the flat earth seal, the flat earth symbol, and that actual seal. They're different. I'm not sure that that's really truly the case. But if there was a flag situation that I would be concerned about, that would be it. And that the UN would have more of a dominant presence and a dominant role. And you see their trucks rolling through cities, countryside, whatever. That's the lowering of one flag and the raising another that sort of, and it was weird because I was talking about Prince William a few months ago, and I was looking at his chart. Prince William, by the way, is born on the summer solstice. He is born on the summer solstice. So that raising of one flag, the lowering of one flag and the raising of another is his symbol. Okay. It is his Sabian symbol. And of course, there's a ton of prophecy, theoretical, around Prince William and leading the standing army. Now, have you been paying attention to what's been happening in Europe? 30,000 troops are now sitting in Bulgaria, apparently. Another 10,000 troops have been deployed to England. What's this all about? Is this another part of the backdrop of the coronavirus, which, again, people have been talking about? War and rumors of war, right? Is the coronavirus a cover for something else? We could devote a whole show to that if we wanted to. It's something to think about. But again, in the grand scheme of things, what are you going to do? Well, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of the people around you. And you got to be nimble. You got to be fast, right? You got to be nimble and fast. You got to do things before the windows close. Make sure you get some UV light. That's really, really important. All right, I want to bring up one more thing before I get out of here today. Again, this is going to be, I think, helpful for people that are freaked out about coronavirus. I tell you right now, heat is the deal. If you can get into heat, like, okay, here's what I would do. If you have, not everybody does, but look, the banks are going to get it funny. Chase Manhattan Bank is closing 20% of its branches. Okay, think about that. Closing 20% of their branches. And who runs the credit cards? What's going to happen to credit card companies? People are out of work. They're going to start to run their credit cards up. There's going to be default on that stuff, right? So I would say if you needed to spend $800 or $900, that this would actually be a good time to do it. So there are these UV, or like they're ultraviolet, the ultraviolet saunas. They're little tents, and you can buy them. I think they're about $800 or $900. They're worth it, and you could have it right in your home. I have one. You get to sit down in it. You get to zip it up for 20 minutes. You get maximum heat. I did one last night. I felt terrific afterwards. That's one thing you can do. And I guarantee you'll probably be able to get one for now, right? I would do that. That's just me. For your own health. I'm not saying that it's going to cure coronavirus, but it's for your own health, right? It stimulates the immune system. It's a very healthy thing to do. Jay talked about that with the Swedes and their ability to use saunas during a time when there isn't a lot of ultraviolet light and not a lot of D vitamins that are going to be, transmitted to people. So what do? They get in the sauna and they stimulate their immune system. That's exactly what they do. So I would do that. I'd get one of those. Anyway, let me just go to this other thing, and then I'm going to round off and get on out of here. I got 3 clients today. So there's a lot going on in that front as well. Apparently, they have found something. I'm just going to bring this up. There are two things. Apparently, the French have found a 50-year-old malaria cure that they've been using to treat coronavirus, and it looks like it's quite effective. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? They have to run out and get more crisis actors to do the malaria trials, the anti-malaria trials. Hydroxychloroquine, so quinine, the same stuff that they use for what? Malaria. Is a less toxic derivative. Chloroquine is effective in inhibiting SARS-CoV-2 infection in vitro. This is nature.com, Cell Discovery. Okay. So there's a PDF that you can download with this. Dear editor, the outbreak of the coronavirus is caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome. Coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, 2019. Poses a serious threat to global public health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have recently reported that two drugs, remdesivir, which is GS5734, and chloroquine, CQ, phosphate, efficiently inhibited SARS-CoV-2 infection in vitro. Remdesivir is a nucleoside analog product developed by Gilead Sciences. A recent case report showed that treatment with remdesivir improved in the clinical condition of the first patient infected by SARS-CoV-2 in the United States. In phase 3 clinical trial of remdesivir against SARS-CoV-2 was launched in Wuhan on February 4, 2020. However, an experimental drug, remdesivir, is not expected to be largely available for treating a very large number of patients in a timely manner. Therefore, the two potential drugs, CQ appears to be the drug of choice for large-scale use due to availability, proven safety record, and a relatively low cost. In light of the preliminary clinical data, CQ has been added to a list of trial drugs and the guidelines for diagnosis and treatment of COVID-19, 6th edition, NHC of the People's Republic of China. So these are anti-malarials. This is what the French are talking about, okay? There's plenty of information here. Again, nature.com articles. I'll put this on the show page, link to this. Be able to read more of it. Now, again, I'm not a scientist. I'm just going by what I pick up and read and put together. Apparently, theoretically, kratom has traces of the chloroquine. So who knew? Who knew, right? You may want to explore the world of kratom. Caveat emptor, I'm not saying to do it. So you might. You're your own experiments in many ways. So there are some interesting things that still you can do in order to really stimulate your immune system and find other ways to stay healthy, because that's the main thing. You got to stay healthy, regardless of all the other BS, garbage, spells, programming, whatever's happening. You got to stay healthy. So I advocate your own personal search and journey towards health and wholeness, wherever it takes you, right? Great resources out there to be able to swap information with. This chat room, very astute chat room, and a lot of healers, people that are switched on to alternative health in the chat room. If you have questions, I'm sure you could ask any number of people in there. I know Finca Lynn is really switched on. She sends me stuff all the time, right? Joan is very switched on. You can, if she's not working and she's in chat, you can ask her questions. The Crimmies, there's a ton of experience in that chat room. Avail yourself of it. It's a resource. It's a really good resource. Okay, I'm going to get on out of here. We've chewed on a lot today. As always, moving forward, there will be a lot more to chew on as we move through this time, this epic period in human history. You're on the front lines of transformation and change, the vanguard of consciousness. You are pioneers in the evolving transformation of your lives and the world, this third dimensional platform in general. Celebrate that. Celebrate that. And it may look doomy and gloomy. We may be dealing with dystopian weather and being forced into our Saturnian cubes and our boxes. But there is an expansion and a potential that is open in each and every one of us. And don't ever forget that. Okay. All right. I'll be back tomorrow. Masaki Miyagawa and Kavenna. I got to get with Kavenna and sync everything up. And we're going to do what's called the experience. Les Walgreen will not be joining me because he's not ready to go public with a lot of his stuff, but I will have a surprise and a special guest, hopefully at the end of tomorrow's show. And you're just going to have to be there to find out what it is. I guarantee you, you'll be pleasantly surprised and pleased with their appearance. Okay. All right. With that, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to see what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to this. If you want to subscribe and support this, there will be links in the show page. You can go to my website, robertphoenix.com, go over to Facebook, where we have the 11th house. You can, connect with a lot of the Chatlandia over on the Facebook space, plus other people that don't normally go to the chat room. And we're just going to do this until, we can't do it anymore, or we're doing it in a different form or whatever. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys. Take care. Love you all. And we'll be back tomorrow with the Friday forecast.